Ethical Perspectives on the News is produced by the Interreligious Council of Linn County, which is solely responsible for its content. The views and opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of KCRG TV9.
Good day and welcome to Ethical Perspectives on the News. My name is Linn Tabak. I will moderate today's discussion. Our topic is changing patterns of retirement. Our guests today are Rick Moyle, Executive Director of the Hawkeye Area Labor Council. He's here in Cedar Rapids. And Matt Roberts is the Chief Planning Officer, a financial planner at Syverson Strege in Des Moines. So I'm going to ask them to say a few words about themselves here in just a moment. We're motivated to explore this topic because of the appearance in recent months of a number of articles that suggest people are changing their plans for retirement. That they're motivated by the pandemic, and now they're motivated by inflation and big changes in the stock market and other events in the world. So, Matt, why don't you say a little bit about yourself? You're a financial planner. You might want to tell us what that means and tell us a little bit about your background, your interest in this subject.
Thanks, Leon. Yes, I'm a financial planner, and a financial planner is somebody that helps clients, typically individuals and families, achieve their financial goals. And we do that through comprehensive financial planning, addressing all facets of their financial life, not just investments. And we do it through a series of meetings that carry on for a lifetime. My background is I started with Syverson Strege back in 2010, and through that time I've helped probably hundreds of families achieve financial goals, a big one being retirement. And we're going to talk a lot about that today, and so I look forward to the discussion.
And Rick, tell us something about yourself, your work with the AFL-CIO, and how that engages you with retirement questions.
Yeah, I'm Executive Director at the Hawkeye Area Labor Council, AFL-CIO, here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. We are a coalition of labor unions. Our jurisdiction consists of 26 counties, 83 separate affiliated unions. In those 26 counties. We are an official arm of the national AFL-CIO in the state of Iowa. And we obviously have an interest in retirements because those are some of the things that we negotiate on a daily basis within the sectors that we help represent. Anything that is pro-worker, pro-working family in the state of Iowa, we definitely want to be at the table and be part of that conversation.
Can you give us a picture of what kinds of retirement plans your members have?
Well, that's all across the board because when you talk about the different sectors, there's building and trade sectors who may have multi-employer pension plans. There's public sector employees who have IPERs. There's private sector who are more likely going to have defined benefit plans as well. I think 2019 was probably one of the last statistics I had seen where 94% of union workers have employer paid pension plans versus 67% non-union. So like I said, obviously, pension plans are going to be a major part of what we want to be part of the conversation with.
Okay. And Matt, are most of your people then investing in 401ks, IRAs, and those kinds of tax protected accounts? Is that the large part of your clientele?
Yeah, a lot of our clients tend to have 401ks, IRAs, simple IRAs, 403B plans if they're in the the public sector, oftentimes. So those are the typical accounts, and of course brokerage accounts as well, which don't have any tax benefits.
Right. Okay. Now, as I said, I was motivated to propose this topic because I read that people are changing their plans in a big way. So I want to ask you, have you seen this? I shared with you some headlines from articles that suggest people are retiring early, but there's other articles talking about people retiring later. So some who are worried about their financial prospects think they need to save more, so they're delaying retirement. Others have been home during the pandemic, and maybe that's motivated them to want to retire early. They don't want to return to a stressful commute or something like that. What have you heard from people?
Well, I think the stress of work due to the pandemic has really caused our clients to think about what's important in life, and we're seeing more than normal, I would say, retire just to go into a lifestyle that has less perceived risk. And so we're starting to see more and more clients take that leap. Of course, that was maybe a little bit more so before some of the volatility and inflation we're seeing this year, but that has been the trend since the start of the pandemic.
Now, Rick, I'm supposing many of the people you represent are engaged in the kind of work that didn't allow work from home during this pandemic, and so their picture of their options are different than what we've seen for professors like me, for example. Are some greatly concerned because of the pandemic about their health, that eager to leave the workplace for that reason? Have you heard anything like that?
Yeah, I think that most blue collar workers, which you're right, essential, majority of union workers across the country were tagged as essential workers. They didn't have the option of not going to work every day. Statistically, I mean, it's been proven that through the pandemic, we lost a lot of blue collar workers throughout the country and in the state of Iowa, particularly in the meatpacking plants in Iowa. But yeah, I mean, to get to your question, I think that anytime you worry about your health or you worry about the possibility of catching something and you're at or near that finish line of that retirement, yeah, I mean, you're going to see those folks go. It's a reality of that situation.
Okay. All right. Okay, and now we've got falling prices in the stock market, so that must be making your phone ring a lot, Matt. What are you hearing from your clients there?
We're hearing some concern about maybe this time it's different than a bunch of events we've seen in the past. Really, history is all we have to go on in terms of market cycles. And so with volatility in the stock market due to rising interest rates and inflation and the situation in Ukraine, I do think we have some reason for concern, but we also have reason to stay the course with our investment strategy. So our clients have heard that message from us probably more than they'd like to hear. And so when we do take those calls, we can quickly give them some peace of mind that the best thing we can do right now is just wait this out, because the market will come back eventually. So having those plans in place help calm some of those fears. But certainly for the general population, only 38% of the general population uses a financial advisor. So if you're doing it yourself, you don't have somebody to call and talk to help talk you off the ledge, so to speak.
Right. That's a scary phrase. Okay. All right. For those who do retire, what does that word mean for your clients? Are they ceasing work altogether? Are they shifting to a different kind of work? Are they retaining options? Are some retiring and then returning to work later? What do you see there?
Linn, we're seeing a lot of clients that are not wanting to just retire and sit on a beach and read the newspaper. They want to do something. They want to have meaning, purpose in life. Oftentimes that means pursuing a passion, and oftentimes that could still be in the business world. Sometimes it could be, I don't need the income, but I'd like to do something to help others. We see a lot of clients that choose to volunteer their time, knowing that they have enough for themselves personally. So we're seeing a lot of clients that want to retire to something, not just retire.
Okay. And Rick, we were talking before the show began. There are some people with defined benefit pensions still, and some in public employment, who have the option of retiring pretty early in life. And I'm curious what those people are doing, what your experience is there.
Well, I think I'll echo, what Matt has stated. Union workers with defined benefit plans aren't going to technically be any different than someone without one. I mean, if you're going to retire early, I think that is common. I think that's human nature, especially for someone who's been working for so long, and then you step out of the workforce. We do see that. We do see where folks will stop in and say, I need to find something part-time. I need something to do. So yeah, we see that. I mean, as far as putting a number on it, I wouldn't have one. People are people when it comes to that. Some folks are, have worked 40 years or 30 years and they want to be done. And then some folks want to do something, forever.
Okay, we might want to pause here just to define some terms for our audience. So there are many ways. The law defines several ways to save for retirement in accounts that allow the investment to grow without taxation. Is that right? Matt, do you want to explain that to our audience?
Yeah, Leon, I'd be happy to explain some of the tax deferred accounts that exist out there. And they typically go under the umbrella of qualified retirement accounts. And there's really two main categories that are important to understand. One is called a traditional or pre-tax retirement account. The other is an after-tax or Roth type of retirement account. So we'll start with the pre-tax or traditional. That means when you put money in, you get a tax deduction. You get to avoid the tax on the income for the contribution you make into that plan. And the taxes grow tax deferred. And then when you go to pull the funds out, as long as you're 59 and a half or older, you just pay ordinary income tax on the distribution. Now, on the opposite side of that, you have Roth retirement accounts, which the contribution goes in on an after-tax basis. So you've already paid the tax on the funds. It does grow tax-free. And then again, when you pull it out at 59 and a half, those are tax-free withdrawals. So for people making that decision between traditional and Roth, it's really important to understand what your income tax bracket is today and what you anticipate that tax bracket being in the future.
And Rick, why don't you define for us defined benefit?
Yeah, defined benefit plan, I mean, is in a nutshell going to be an employer-paid plan. It's going to be something that's been collectively bargained for. So it could be a lot of factors on when you can go. They're guaranteed benefits, going to be based on age, length of employment, type of service, those types of things. But historically in union contracts, those plans will be, or could be, especially in the industrial world, they could be so many set dollars, per year of service. So you would take if it's $16 per year of service, you would multiply that by, if you have 40 years of service, and you'd multiply that by 40, and that would be your monthly benefit on that defined benefit plan. Now, some of those, I think it's still 79% of union workers have that defined benefit plan. Some of them have a 401k along with that. And then it also, I mean, historically they've gone away with some of those defined benefit plans and went to a 401k. So, but that's the defined benefit plan in a nutshell.
Do you have concerns with the people with whom you work? Are there some who are not taking advantage of the opportunities they have to prepare for retirement? So some employers provide a match for investing in retirement accounts the employee gets free money if the employee is willing to put more money into the retirement account. Then the employer adds something as well. That money the employer was willing to add disappears if the employee just chooses not to contribute and just spends the money. So there's some concern perhaps, especially with younger employees who might not be as prudent as they should be or could be. Want to comment on that? What more can we explain about that for our audience?
Well, I think the root, Leon, is about cash flow management. And you can't put more money into a retirement account if you don't have the money to put into it. And so many people in the country are living paycheck to paycheck. They need to get better at managing their finances. And so getting a budget in place, understanding where your money goes, we need to bring in more than we spend to be able to save money. And so I think you have to start there. And then it's about education, about what compound interest does over time. And so, just saving $5,000 a year, whether that's an employee or an employer contribution for your whole working career could amount to a pretty substantial amount of money. But I don't think that message is out there to everyone. And but at the end of the day, I think it really does come down to behavior and having the cash flow to be able to get that match that an employer plan would provide.
Are you concerned about some of your union members missing out, Rick? Are there some who are not covered?
Yeah, I think I think back to the days when I was an in-plant rep at a local plant here in Cedar Rapids, and it was always a defined benefit plan forever. And I was young at the time. I was 20 years old. I'm not going to date myself and give you the year, but this was when a lot of manufacturing facilities were spinning into a 401k, or they were freezing their defined benefit plans at the rate that it was at, and then offering a 401k. At that time, it seemed like to me the younger folks were more apt to accept that, and the older folks, more of your baby boomers, they were used to the defined benefit plans. They really didn't understand the 401k. So, like Matt was saying, it's a part of educating. So yeah, I mean, I think everybody worries about folks being able to be able to retire someday and retire in dignity, and it does go back to, if you get into the 401k plans and other IRAs and those types of things that people can be doing, whether they're union workers or not. He mentioned that you have to have the money to put in. Well, that's a whole nother episode, right? That's wages that have been stagnant for how long, and especially now and a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. So yeah, we have concerns with that, and we try to educate members on what they can do based on the sector, and their industrial unions and their local unions try to educate them as well.
So I was hoping as I say, to hear something about big changes in when people retire, how people retire. So far, I'm not hearing that you see any big trends going one way or another. People retiring older or younger. Are we agreed there?
I don't think you can establish a trend, Leon.
Okay.
I think it's tough because so much of it depends on economic and market conditions that we're in. So I think that's what you have to look at. And as soon as the markets turn, like they have this year, people are going to be a little bit more apprehensive to pull the trigger on retirement.
Well, here's another thing that has changed during the last 2 years in the retirement area. People who are retiring during the pandemic, many of them are missing out on the retirement ceremonies and the farewell to longtime colleagues that they would have had in the past, right? The office building is mostly empty. People aren't gathering face to face. So people who have given a large part of their lives to an organization and now want to retire are just putting things in a box and walking out the door by themselves in some cases. Have we heard any stories like that? As I have. No?
I haven't,
Okay.
Leon. I really haven't. I'm sure that it happens. But again, so many of our people were tagged as essential throughout the entire pandemic, so they didn't necessarily lose out on those gatherings in place, just a little more separated and monitored, I would imagine.
Okay.
Yeah, Leon, from our clients' experience, it really depends on their employer and whether they work from home or not. But certainly, retiring when your entire company is working from home is going to have a way different feel than when everyone's in the office. But I think as we work our way out of the pandemic, things are getting back to normal, and I think those normal retirement parties are back on the table. They certainly are. We have one of our partners retiring this year, and we are throwing him a big celebration.
Oh, very good. Very good. Okay. Let me think for a moment here about what we want to say next here.
Leon, if I could jump in for a
Please
second, I think for so many people, the decision to retire is based on what they're going to do next. Once you have enough resources, it's about the type of lifestyle you want to have in retirement. Not everybody has a real clear picture on that. So just to our audience here, I do want to offer a couple resources that we share with our clients that I think can be really helpful. One of those resources is called New Retirementality. It's a book by Mitch Anthony. It has 17 steps to how to structure your retirement to really have meaning and just to make sure you don't get bored. That's a huge thing. We hear from some retirees that they just don't have enough to do. So I think going through that planning exercise can be really helpful. The other book that I would recommend when you don't have a clear picture of what you're going to do is Bob Buford's Halftime. And you had a great career, but you're only kind of halfway there, especially as we age longer and longer. And it's a great book to figure out what's next in your life.
What was that called again, please?
Halftime by Bob Buford.
Okay. All right.
And I think another thing, Leon, if I could jump in quick, maybe you were going here, but I think another thing to look at, especially with a lot of our folks in this country, is healthcare, right? So many of our folks, they may have clauses within their collective bargaining agreements that say, okay, well, you can go full benefits, your defined benefit plan, at age 62. And then you can pay what you're currently paying for your medical insurance for you and your spouse up until age 65, when Medicare would kick in. But we're losing that too. Historically, through the years, that's going away. So essentially forcing people to stay working until they hit that age of 65 so that they can, draw on Medicare. That is something that we do see quite a bit in our world.
Yeah, I was curious about that, about how couples manage that if one spouse is older than the other, and then the Medicare qualification becomes an important consideration of when to retire. Okay, let's talk about how we're teaching young people or people in middle age or others to prepare themselves. What are the employers doing? Who else should be doing this? Should this be in the schools? Well, how do we make sure everybody's doing what they ought to be doing for their own good futures? What do the unions do to acquaint people with preparation for retirement?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on what sector you're talking about. Everybody does something, right? And then in the private sector, it may lean a little more heavy on the employer, especially if there's 401k plans. The union's going to offer educational courses throughout the year to try to educate folks. Maybe something that they bring up in orientations. There are banks that we all work with, credit unions that we all work with. So there's courses and classes that are suggested that people take for that. You get into the building and trade sectors, they're going to offer substantial training through some of the same mechanisms that I just said, but also in their apprenticeship programs, trying to educate those folks and make them see that there is a day that will come when they need to retire and they need to have things in order. So, I mean, those are some of the things that we're doing. I mean, we bring in financial advisors too for different sessions. It's anything we can.
Okay. And Matt, your clients come to you with goals in mind. You're doing a lot of education for them. Do they come, some of them, asking you to start from zero with them? What's the range there?
Yeah, we typically work with people that are a little bit more established, and that's pretty much the reality for most financial advisors. So I think there's a really underserved market out there of people that don't have a lot yet, but it's the most critical time for them to start planning. So it is unfortunate, and our firm has recognized this, and we've created a financial literacy program that is free to the public. It's called Financial Foundations, and we invite people to learn the basics of financial concepts. And I think it's great that they teach it in high school. I wish it was taught in all high schools. I wish it was taught in college more. But really, the most critical time in someone's financial life is right after they get out of high school or they get out of college, because that's when they actually start having to manage money. And so that when you're in your 20s and when you're in your 30s, that's when you need it the most. And that's what our program is designed to do, is to help people in that age group really start off on the right foot.
Okay, very good. Well, this is a topic of great interest to me. As you can see from my face, I'm at a point in life where it's especially relevant, and it can be a scary subject for many. So I feel fortunate myself. I worry about others who might not be as well prepared for retirement. Rick, you have, we're down to the very last minute here. You have something else you'd like to tell our audience before we part?
No, I'd like to thank you, Leon, and thank Ethical Perspectives for being on, for having me on. And I just want to say that it's our belief that everybody has a right in this country to retire, with benefits, retire in dignity when they've reached the end of that work life. So we represent that, and we fight for that, and we'll continue to do that.
Okay. And any last word there, Matt?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Ethical Perspectives and you, Leon, for having us on the program. And I think if I just have a parting word, is just to encourage people to seek financial advice. Only 38% of people in this country use a financial advisor. I'd like to see that number go up, because I think it can pay dividends down the road. And I'd encourage people to work with a certified financial planner or a CFP, and also to work with a fee-only advisor that isn't selling products and provides true financial advice. I think that's a good next step for people contemplating retirement.
Very good. Well, thank you, Rick. Thank you, Matt. You've part of this purpose of our program is to introduce our audience to interesting and engaged members of the community. So here we have two people who are doing good work for your neighbors. And I hope you all in the audience learned a little bit more about this subject. If you want to learn more and you search on the internet with changing patterns of retirement, you'll find lots of articles that talk about how the pandemic and inflation are changing people's plans. So thank you for joining us on Ethical Perspectives on the News. See you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Matt.